Max Verstappen might be the most hated driver in Formula 1, and some of the criticism is earned. The defensive driving that pushed the FIA to clarify its defensive driving guidelines, the collision with Norris in Austria, the radio meltdowns in Hungary.
No, mate, don't give me that now. You guys give me this strategy, okay? I'm trying to rescue myself.
The refusal to soften the moment, apologise for the cameras, or pretend he cares whether people like him. Verstappen has never tried to make his dominance feel friendly. He wins cold, argues openly, and leaves the emotional repair work to everyone else. And that is the part Formula 1 has never known how to handle. Because F1 has seen aggressive drivers before. It has seen ruthless champions before. What it rarely handles well is a champion who dominates without apology. This is how the hate outgrew the reasons for it. Go back to where it started, 2015, Spa-Francorchamps. Verstappen, 17 years old, throws his Toro Rosso around the outside of Felipe Nasr through Blanchimont. Nearly 300 km an hour, side by side through one of the fastest corners in motorsport. The move won the FIA's Action of the Year. Helmut Marko told him never to do it again. He was fearless, raw, and completely unconcerned with what anyone thought. By 2016 and 2017, the complaints were constant.
The only interest is pushing me off the circuit completely.
Moving under braking, blocking too hard.
Hey, come on, this is ridiculous now. He's just turning when I'm going full speed on the right.
Refusing to give an inch in wheel-to-wheel combat. The criticism wasn't all unfair. He was aggressive to a fault, and his defensive driving pushed the boundaries of what the rules allowed. But he was also 19 years old and learning in public, at 300 km an hour against world champions. Then something changed. He cleaned up his racecraft, cut out the errors, became one of the most precise and calculated drivers on the grid, and the hate got worse. Because now the people who wanted him to fail didn't have the mistakes to point to anymore, they just had the wins. The 2021 season turned Verstappen into a villain for half the world. He and Hamilton went to war across 22 races in one of the most intense championship battles in F1 history. Silverstone, Monza, Saudi Arabia, Abu Dhabi. There were real flashpoints, moments where Verstappen's aggression was genuinely questionable. The sudden braking incident with Hamilton in Jeddah, the first lap collisions, the constant edge of every battle. These are legitimate reasons to criticise a driver. But then came Abu Dhabi, and the criticism stopped being about driving and became about something else entirely. Verstappen didn't write the rules. He didn't call the safety car. He didn't decide which cars could unlap themselves. He saw the green flag and did what any driver on the planet would do. He raced. He overtook. He won. And half the world blamed him for a decision made by a race director who was later removed from that role after the controversy. What made it worse was what Verstappen didn't do afterwards. He didn't offer a concession, didn't soften the moment for Hamilton, didn't perform the guilt that people wanted from him. He celebrated because he'd won. And that refusal to apologise for something that wasn't his fault became the seed of everything that followed. The hate stopped being about what Verstappen did on track. It became about what he represented. People didn't just dislike how he won in 2021, they dreaded the idea that he might keep winning. The boos came next. Sections of the Silverstone crowd jeered him after qualifying in 2022. It carried to Monza and other hostile venues across the calendar. And Verstappen stood on the podium unbothered. He told the press the boos didn't spoil his day. There was no drop in form, no emotional weekends. He showed up, delivered, and kept winning. The boos never seemed to make him smaller. If anything, they made the gap between Verstappen and everyone else feel colder. And then came 2023, and the hate split into something new. It was no longer just about the villain, it was about the inevitability. 19 wins from 22 races, 575 points, 12 pole positions, a 290-point gap over second place. He won from 9th on the grid in Miami, recovered from 15th to 2nd in Jeddah. At Spa, he was leading by lap 17 after starting 6th. His teammate Sergio Perez had the exact same car and scored less than half the points. And that's where the favourite criticism started to collapse. Because if the car alone explained the dominance, Perez should have been somewhere close. He wasn't. Fans were left with a more uncomfortable explanation. The driver they were tired of watching win might actually have been that much better. Unlike Hamilton's dominant years, where Nico Rosberg pushed him to the limit in 2016 and Ferrari challenged seriously in 2017 and 2018, Verstappen had no consistent rival, no teammate threatening him, no other team close enough to make it interesting for more than a handful of races.
And nothing makes dominance harder to stomach than feeling like the result is already written before the lights go out. People say dominance is boring. They said it about Schumacher, they said it about Hamilton, but this is what F1 always does with its greatest drivers. Schumacher was called ruthless, manipulative, a cheat who parked his car in qualifying at Monaco. Hamilton was accused for years of winning only because of the Mercedes. Both were booed, both were resented, both are now viewed with far more historical respect. Verstappen is in that same uncomfortable middle stage. The numbers are already historic, but the emotions are still too fresh for perspective. And yes, the radio outbursts don't help. Hungary 2024 was ugly. Verstappen berated his engineer Giampiero Lambiase on live radio, swearing at strategy calls and telling critics to turn the volume down.
Don't give me the now. You guys give me the strategy, okay? I'm trying to rescue myself.
But their relationship is more complicated than the broadcast clips suggest. They argue like a married couple because that's how they find the limit. Lambiase has been Verstappen's engineer since 2016. He's one of the few people who talks back to him, tells him to use his head and shuts down the radio when it gets childish. It's friction, but it's productive friction. The public just hears the shouting. Austria 2024 was harder to explain away. Verstappen and Norris collided while fighting for the lead. Verstappen was penalised, Norris retired, and the friendship between them visibly cracked. Norris initially said he might lose respect for him, even if he later softened that stance. And yet, even after that, Norris has acknowledged Verstappen's talent. Leclerc has, Sainz has, even Hamilton, after everything in 2021, has spoken about his quality. The hate lives loudest in grandstands and on social media. In the pit lane, respect usually wins. But the deeper reason the hate sticks isn't the aggression or the radio or even the incidents. It's that Verstappen denies fans the emotional performance they expect from champions. He doesn't soften himself after a controversy. He doesn't make winning feel generous or grateful. He doesn't perform vulnerability for the cameras. He wins, says what he thinks, and moves on. In an era where athletes are expected to manage their image as carefully as their careers, that bluntness reads as arrogance. And arrogance attached to dominance is the hardest thing for sport to forgive. But here's what that framing misses. Before 2021, before the dominance, before the boos, Verstappen spent 5 seasons dragging cars that had no business winning into places they didn't belong. From 2016 to 2020, he never had the fastest car over a season. Mercedes held the Constructors' Championship every single year, and yet he won races in every one of them. Austria 2019, Germany 2019 in the chaos and rain, and then there was Interlagos 2016. It rained all day in Sao Paulo. Visibility was brutal. Cars aquaplaned off the track. Red flags stopped the race twice. And in the middle of that chaos, a 19-year-old dropped outside the top 10 after a bad pit call and then drove through the field. He found grip on the high camber lines while everyone else clung to the racing line and slid. He overtook Hülkenberg, then Vettel, car after car in corners that shouldn't allow overtaking. The car snapped sideways at over 300 km an hour on the main straight. He caught it with a flick of the wheel and kept going. He finished on the podium. Hamilton won the race. Verstappen stole the show. That was the day the paddock stopped calling him a prospect and started calling him inevitable. And then the dominance ended, and something more interesting took its place. Verstappen won 4 consecutive World Championships between 2021 and 2024. Then 2025 stripped that comfort away. McLaren's Lando Norris took the title by just 2 points. Verstappen had been 104 points off the lead after the Dutch Grand Prix. He won 5 of the 8 races from Italy through Qatar, then took the Abu Dhabi finale and still fell 2 points short. Even in the year he lost, he won 8 races and pushed the eventual champion to the final lap of the final race. If 2023 proved the car was special, 2025 proved the driver was. Is he perfect? No. He's aggressive, sometimes past the line. He's abrasive on the radio and unapologetic in the press room. He'll never be universally loved, and he doesn't seem to care. But the scale of the hatred has never matched the scale of the offences. It matched the scale of the winning. 19 wins in a single season, 4 consecutive titles, the youngest point scorer, podium finisher and race winner in the history of the sport. History won't remember whether Verstappen was easy to like. It will remember that for a stretch of modern Formula 1, he made the hardest thing in motorsport look inevitable.